Have you ever gotten a brand new Fat Quarter bundle and you're so excited about working with it, but you're just a little nervous about cutting it up into quilt pieces? Stay tuned. I'm going to show you how to do them successfully every time. Hi, I'm Fran Morgan with Fabric Cafe. Today we're going to talk about cutting fat quarters using the patterns from our brand new Fat Quarter Quilting Fun book. The book has 7 different patterns in it, and they are all shown on the back here. And in the book, so great, we have our very basic instructions here. Be sure and read those whenever you get the book, because it gives you lots of information on putting your quilts together. Each of the instructions also have enlargement diagrams so that you can make either a twin or a queen king size. Now the patterns are written originally, other than the enlargements there, for a lap size, which is approximately 45 inches by 60 inches, give or take an inch on each of the quilts. But they're each made to kind of look like a scrappy quilt so that you can use up your stash of fat quarters, or we can also offer you bundles for the quilts that you see here. So let's start out and let's look at our Meander quilt and show you how to get these fat quarters cut successfully. This is our Meander quilt. This quilt actually takes 10 fat quarters. We have 2 matching fat quarters for the outside binding and then 2 matching fat quarters for this little area here. So you can actually go and pull 10 fat quarters from your stash and make this, and they can be all different kinds of fat quarters. I've used some beautiful batiks here, but of course you can definitely pull whatever. One of the things that I really like about these quilts is that they are made to kind of have that scrappy look, so you can pull them from your stash and use just some light mediums and darks from your stash. So let's come over here and talk about the Meander pattern and how we're going to get that cut. So whenever you choose your pattern, after you choose, we are going to actually review those general instructions, and then we are going to review the materials list. And in the book we've put them in these little colored boxes so they're very easy to identify. And you'll see here that we have 2 light fat quarters, 4 medium, 6 dark. And then we go on to say 2 matching light fat quarters, 3 assorted, and then go just with the dark, the 3 assorted, 2 matching, and then the 1 for the binding. So this gives you a really good guide. Now if you haven't seen the video that I did on pulling your fat quarters, it'd be great to go back and check that out, and I kind of stepped through how to determine what's a light, what's a medium, what's a dark, and pulling those from your stash. So be sure and check that out as well. So on our Meander quilt, as we showed here, we have our fat quarters. And what I have done, and I find that this helps me be a lot more organized whenever I'm doing my cutting. I find that this helps me to not accidentally cut a medium that should have been a light or something like that, because they're sometimes very close. It's hard to tell. So I will go and identify which fat quarters that I want, and then I put them in bags with labels matching, or just a straight pen and a handwritten note or something like that, just so that you can do it. But as you can see here, I have all of my different fat quarters identified. That way I know, okay, I'm cutting dark matching. That means that that's the border. It's in my list that way. This is what I'm using that for. So once you've identified the fat quarters that you're using and you have them all labeled, then we'll begin cutting. Now the first thing that I would recommend is, of course, once again, review the cutting instructions in the book. Read the full instructions. On each cutting instruction there's also a cutting diagram. Now the diagram shows the direction to cut the fat quarter, as well as an abbreviated list of what needs to be cut in this manner according to the diagram. So that's going to be very helpful and help you from miscutting, but be sure to read the full instructions as well as the abbreviations. Now I have a fat quarter here laid out on a cutting mat. And a couple of things I want to just point out about our fat quarters. The patterns in Fat Quarter Fun are using fat quarters that are a minimum of 18 inches by 21 inches. So my green cutting mat here is actually 18 inches wide, and it's a 24. So you can see that I've got the 21, plenty of room here. So this is going to be a great fat quarter to use. The next thing is, of course, I've pressed it so it's nice and smooth. Then I'm going to determine which side is my selvage. Now, when you're using batiks like this, sometimes it's a little trickier to determine which side is your selvage. So what I have a tendency to do is I'll just take my thumbnail and I'll kind of scratch this side. And you see there's no little eyelash threads coming off. But on this side, I can just scratch it a little bit and you can see that the threads start coming off. So it's a very simple way to identify which side is selvage. Before you cut your fat quarters, you will want to remove the selvage. And also, I didn't mention this, but the measurement, the 21, needs to be without the selvage. So you need plenty of, you need to make sure that your fat quarter is the appropriate size. So we've determined our selvage edge. The next thing is to determine the right or wrong side. Now on batiks, it's really hard to tell. And love batiks, love using them. On a normal printed fabric, it's usually pretty identifiable. There's no trouble. But on a batik, it looks like they're very similar. What I would say is use the side that you prefer. There really is no right or wrong side, and you can go either way with it. I prefer to use the side that comes across a little bit more intense in color. Sometimes it's pretty hard to tell, but if there's an obvious, like this one seems a little darker on this side than the other side, that is the side that I choose. But it is totally up to you, and there is no right or wrong. Do what you really like. So now we're going to start cutting the fat quarter. Now, as I mentioned before, I've lined it up onto my cutting mat here. The first thing I'm going to do is cut this selvage off. And I know that I'm probably not doing this normally the way I would do it, but I'm just going to give this a quick cut. And there's my selvage. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm all ready to start cutting my pieces. I'm going to double check my cutting diagram. I'm going to be cutting the 18-inch length, and I'm going to be cutting 7 strips at 2 3/4 inches wide. So let's just go ahead and do that. First things first, I'm going to get this edge all straightened out here. You know, it's nothing like being put on the spot to show all of your quilting skills on camera. Make sure you're doing it right? And those reading upside down skills. All right, I'm going to line my ruler up at 2 3/4, and it looks perfect. And then I'm going to cut my strip. And as you can see here, this strip is basically one of these little strips where it shows the dotted line is divided. Now, something else I would like to mention is often we will cut strips and then we will cut additional blocks from those strips. So as I mentioned before, you can refer to the abbreviated instructions next to the cutting diagram, but please be sure to double check in the full cutting instructions over here exactly what we need to be doing. So, and I also want to point out, you see how these are going the 18-inch direction? On cutting diagram D, we are going along the 21, so you would just cut a little different. The reason why we've changed this up a little bit is with the fat quarter quilts, we are working with smaller sizes, and we've tried to get the quilts just as large as you possibly can, and sometimes the measurements just fell better whenever you cut at the 18 or the 21 side. So we have given you just as much quilt as possible from your fat quarters. So that's part of the reason why. Okay, so at this point we have cut our strips. I would like to encourage you to assemble some little bags like this. And what I've done is I've put, this is my light matching fat quarter, and this strip is going to be used for the strip assembly. And of course that is stated in your full cutting instructions. So after I cut these, I will just kind of fold them up and put them in my little bags so that I'm organized and ready to go. Once I start assembling my quilt top, then I know exactly what the pieces are for, and I won't make any mistake and accidentally grab, for instance, a border strip and use it in a strip assembly by accident. So this is one of the ways that I keep myself together and organized. So we have that strip. Now I'm going to just kind of shift over here a little bit and show you. Now here's our strip assembly that we're going to use. I'm going to pull this back out. So I think you got the organization part there. So we have used our strip assembly, this strip and a strip assembly, and of course you would also cut one of your medium assorteds the width that it states in the book, and you're going to sew those together. And then very simply, after they're sewn together, we're going to cut our sections off to get our units. And then once we get our units, and we've cut our other pieces, we start assembling our block. Now this block is just so simple. We actually have 2 units here, and forgive me, I don't remember their names, so I'm going to just look really quick. And my book and my instructions, we have our Unit A's, which is from the strip assembly, and our Unit B, which is just a solid rectangle. And then we're going to flip our Unit A's like this and put them together. And that's going to make our block for Meander. And then I have a couple here that are all done. Now also I want to mention that for our little step outs here, I have just used 3 different fat quarters. When you're making your quilt, you're going to use all 10 of those fat quarters, and your blocks are going to be all colorful and scrappy looking and be really gorgeous. In my case, I just used the same one so that I can show you how the block is put together. So let's look at our quilt. Now let's use our cropping tool, and I'm going to show you where this block falls, just so that you can kind of see it, because the way the quilt's put together, it's a little trick of the eye with the way that the colors come together. So here's our block, and then here is our block made, so you can see that we're just going to place those in there. So I'm going to slide this cropping tool to the side here, place this one on top. Now I have not cut the seam allowances off of this block, so you can see that it's just slightly bigger than what's in the quilt. Now the really cool thing about this quilt, because we have these light sections on the block, we're just turning the exact same made block with our different colors, putting them together, and that's what makes this cool yellow section. So whenever it comes together, it almost looks like it's a block too. So it's that trick of the eye on the quilt and how it's put together. So I just love how that's done. And of course, all of our books include your assembly diagrams, some beautiful full color pictures here so that you can see everything and how to put it together. And what's really great with Fabric Cafe right now is we have this Fat Quarter bundle available in the colors that you see here on the quilt. And we've actually included the 2 matching lights, your assorted mediums, and your assorted darks with the 2 matching for the border. Beautiful colors, gives you that fun scrappy look. They all go together so well though, exactly as you need. Now this Fat Quarter bundle is 8021090. It's called Garden Meander for the Meander quilt. And the bonus on this, if you get 3 Fat Quarter bundles, you can choose the Fat Quarter Fun quilt for free, which is absolutely awesome. Now with 12 Fat Quarters, you can make any of the 7 quilts that are included. The quilts are written for a lap size, but instructions for every quilt to do a twin or a king queen are definitely included. And general rule of thumb, 2 bundles will do a twin size and 4 bundles will do a king queen. So thank you so much for joining today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell too so you can be notified when we have a new video up. And we appreciate you so much, and get that scrappy fat quarter quilt going. See you later.